Hi, everybody in the Up With People world and alumni world. I am Donna Reed, and I traveled with Up With People in 1976. And my guest today is Danielle Gentry. And I specifically wanted Danielle to come after having interviewed a World Smart student because Danielle has been in many facets of Up With People through the years. So, and then I had her put her maiden name in because I couldn't remember. So Danielle, welcome. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
And you're in Colorado, right?
I am. I live in Thornton, Colorado, not too far from where the Up With People headquarters is. So,
is Thornton where Bruce and Linda Early have their timeshare? I feel like I was up there. Anyway, not like I know all the suburbs, but welcome. So Danielle, just briefly before I hit record, we talked a little bit about your journey. So tell everyone when you were first a student and then kind of the following years.
Sure. So in 1993, I traveled with CASB as a student. We had a fantastic tour and spent some good time in the Midwest, and then went down to Mexico for 3 months and over to Sweden and Finland, and then back to New England. So just a great tour. Nice. I had such a fantastic experience. I stayed on the next year as an admissions rep for CASB again in B94. And then following that, I actually went into the office and worked for a stint in the office in the education department. So helping training new ed folks who were going on the road with folks, Mo Salth and Joanna Mackey and Nancy Narowski, folks who were there at that time, and was there for just under a year. And then I left and went and did a whole bunch of other things. I went back and got a master's degree. And then after Up With People had closed in 2000, of course, heartbroken like most folks. And then they were trying to get things started again. And they came up with this concept of the World Smart program. I was working in leadership development for a university and had an opportunity that I was approached to come back over and help work with implementing and starting the World Smart program. So I went back into the office and worked with the skeleton staff that sort of came back in to get things going there for a couple of years. And then as the transition happened again, I left again. And then most recently came back a couple of years ago to Site Direct, one of the Up With People junior programs as well. So working with the youth and just really staying connected to where the organization was heading and hoping for the best. And I've hosted lots and lots of students over the last several years at home too, which has been great.
So were you originally from Colorado? Is that where you are?
I'm not. I'm actually originally from Massachusetts.
I thought you were East Coast. Okay.
Yeah. I am. And I actually first saw the show when it came to the University of New Hampshire when I was an undergrad at university. And I was accepted when I was a sophomore, but deferred and went after I graduated from university.
Okay. Okay. So from the old Up With People perspective, were we still headquartered in Tucson? Did you come to Tucson for your staging, or had they just moved to Denver?
Just moved to Denver. We were the first staging in 1993, July of 93, out of Denver, Colorado. So it was the first, and they had a big celebration to open the new headquarters in Broomfield with a beautiful office and
all the flags. Yeah.
Yes, it was incredible. Mm-hmm.
Nice, nice. And what was the show? All the shows post me seem to have a name. I don't remember. I think we were just the bicentennial tour. There was no name.
Yeah, we were World in Motion. So we traveled with World in Motion, which was one of the first ones that actually had was supposed to have like this real distinct storyline, right? It was like a television broadcast, and they went, broadcasting live from here and there, and each of the different components as the storyline that went through. There was a host and a hostess of the show that narrated as we went on these different adventures throughout the show.
Interesting. Okay. I've been to so many reunions that I kind of know the 3 or 4 main songs that everybody sings at a reunion. Don't remember the rest.
Well, always at reunion, we do It Up, which is the big dance one. World in Motion is the opening number. And then our finale song is What's Happening. So that was the one.
Happening to you is happening to me.
Exactly. That's the one.
Okay. Yeah. So, all right. So because I did costumes for a number of years, I'm always interested, and I forget to ask people this. I feel like we could have a whole article in Upbeat about costumes. What did you guys wear? What
Oh
were
my
you?
goodness. Well, they were not the height of fashion, right? So we had these rompers, like these dresses with these wide elastic belts, t-shirts, dresses, or these one-piece romper jumpsuits. And then the men had brown pants and like these rugby kind of style shirts or a button-down shirt. And they were all like earthy tones. So mine
That's
was
what I
like
was thinking. The golds and
olive
burgundies and
green.
things.
Mine
Yeah.
was like olive green with like a mauve colored t-shirt. Really lovely. And we even had show shoes, right? So we had like
Yeah.
these pumps or heels, show shoes, and the boys had like Oxford shoes and things too. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, I mean, again, at that time, we were issued a costume, right? And that's the one
Right.
we did try and trade them throughout the year. Like, oh, I'm bored of wearing my same one. Can I trade with somebody else who
Oh,
has
that's
something
funny.
more interesting? Yeah, which is
Yeah.
fun.
It's interesting to think about that because I don't think we did that. The big thing we would do is we would put like a square dance hoop underneath our polyester dress just to be weird on stage sometime or whatever.
Such
But
fun.
did you also have an assembly costume, or did you, if you did an assembly or another show, did you wear the same things?
No, so well, yes, we wore our regular costume, but there was, of course, all the specialty costumes for the different
Right.
components. And most times when we did, they called them JBLs at the time. Like if we'd go to a school or go to the mall and do a show or a small setup, it was usually in the specialty costumes because it was primarily and if you were a vocalist, I was a dancer mostly in the show. I mean, obviously
Okay.
everybody did everything like we always
Yeah.
do, but so all of the dancing staff wore the specialty costumes, whereas if you were a vocalist, you wore your
Show
standard,
costume.
yep, your regular show costume.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know when they started the whole bring your own costume thing, but that's what my son had to do in
Mhm.
2013, which by the way, this is a reunion year for you. Are you coming? Are you
I
coming?
am,
I was
yes,
going to
and
say, because when I heard that it was a 3 year, so maybe I'll see you up in Phoenix.
yes,
And Caleb has his 10 year, and they they brought their own, and then they
mhm.
were picked. They were told to bring whatever they were told to bring. And so it's amusing to me. Caleb is getting married this year. He'll be thrilled that I share this with everybody. And on the wedding website, he said, if you're from up with people, and they called them ones, twos, threes, fours, and fives, depending on how dressy they were,
Yes.
bring these to wear, like the threes or the it
Dress
cracked
code.
it cracked me up. So that world will understand how formal it is or not
Yes, exactly. By those numbers. Mhm.
by those numbers, which, sometimes I feel like I should do that at my office. Like the
Right.
people, you're at the front desk, you should wear your ones or twos.
Yes. Well, and we had just travel day, like here's what you should wear on a travel day, here's what you should wear,
Yes.
but we weren't quite so organized with numbering the
Yeah.
system. But having
Well,
hosted students, I know they're like, oh, it's a 2 day, so I need to wear this. I don't
yeah.
remember what they are, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I know. It's sort of funny. So, you traveled all over the place, and then you said you did admissions and things. So, I want to ask your thoughts about then coming back for World Smart. And again, you and I just touched on this ever so slightly, because out of 23,000 alumni, I'm going to say there's at least 21,000 who have no idea what World Smart really is or was or did. And
Right.
I feel like as we come into the new program,
Mhm.
Voices, I told Seema this the other day, so I'm going to speak it here. I think it's a little bit of a combination of World Smart and Up with People.
Yes.
And so tell me from your perspective, what
Yeah.
was that like? What do you think was similar and or different?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, even if you just go back, right, Up with People closed down in 2000 because there were some major financial structures and we couldn't sustain the organization the way that it was.
Right.
So when World Smart came out, it was really trying to have this business model that still held the essence of what was at the core, right? Like, what does Up with People believe in? What do students want to come and do? What are they getting from this experience? And what are they contributing to the world and the
Right.
communities they visit on the back end? All of those same things were at the core of the plan of where it was coming. The biggest struggle, I think, was how do we take what Up With People had grown to in the 90s, right?
Right.
Massive 5 casts traveling with 100 to 150 students in each cast, the
Right.
operations, the logistics, I mean, a massive headquarters. And now we're saying all of that is gone, and we have to start something small, in a lot of ways going back to the roots of Up With People, right? How do we begin like-minded people with a passion for community, learning about people's differences and appreciating them, contributing and giving back? How do we do all of those things and be able to give an experience to a student that they're growing and learning, that they take away from it, and still hold true to Blanton Belk's vision and mission of what the organization started, what we all walk away from and say, this experience, whether you traveled in 72, 85, 93, we all walked away saying, this experience changed my life. And what it did, connecting you to people, the world, understanding all of those things, all of that was still the same, right? That was what WorldSmart was built on. The biggest challenge was rallying this group that had seen this, of alumni that had had this big successful piece, and having them understand that it could be different than what we all experienced and still hold the same core values, right? So those are the things that if you ask any of the students who traveled in those, and now they didn't call them cast, they called
them, they called them crews, right?
Crews, because they were trying to say, hey, let's keep the core components, but let's give it its own identity. It was a little bit back to, I think, like when Carolyn Lee talks about, hey, I taught a class or a course. It was trying to put some of that real hardcore academic educational component back in, hence WorldSmart, right? There were faculty members who were teaching curriculum. They were getting credit for it. Those components of the program were stronger than probably what a lot of the other pieces in our more recent Up With People years. But some of the other pieces, the components of saying like culture and music and all of that, and the community piece, were also still part of WorldSmart, but the balance was different. Right. So for those crews on the road, they stayed longer in a community. They were building more partnerships and relationships there and digging deeper into what are the social challenges or problems in this community. How can we address it with what we're learning on an educational academic, so that when we come in, we're not a flash in the pan and then just moving on, that we're putting something in place. The hardest part, and probably what most alumni had the biggest challenge with, and still, right, when they say, is it the legacy of, did they sing the same songs, and did they bring back all of this stuff that we will all say was such a huge part? And it looked different. But for the WorldSmart students, and even alumni's kids who traveled during that time, the essence or the core was still there because the messaging was the same. The music and the big production was not part of it, really, for economic.
Right. Oh yeah.
We couldn't sustain that kind of a program. That wasn't the model. But what they did do was bring in those cultural components and music components, and the students still they knew about the legacy of the organization and where it had come from. It was really a huge effort in trying to get them to understand, hey, this is what came before you and why you get to have this experience. I just think there maybe could have been more time figuring out how to meld or mesh the two. So there was more consistency, but there was an urgency to get something out there, get it moved before it disappeared. And then there were pieces that were like, it doesn't quite work for, again, our larger alumni population, who predominantly are the ones who are sponsoring and bringing the tours and saying, hey, I want my kids to go experience this. I think why it didn't last as long was for that, right? How can we take this and actually bring back more of what we miss, right? So it was a great learning experience. But those crews that traveled, those students, they don't feel as welcome always
Uh-huh.
back
That's
into
what
our
Silvana
world.
said. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think if we could get a mass population of them to come back, it would shift the dialogue,
Yeah.
because those crews are meeting, having their own reunions all over the world, getting together. They have made the connections. They
Yeah.
have this global perspective. They have this sense of purpose of making the world better
Yeah.
by their day-to-day actions. They are, in essence, just like any other alumni from the rest of our programs.
Yeah.
And the only piece that's missing is they don't know all of the songs and the music. They have an appreciation for it. They
Right.
just don't know it, and they don't perform that. But what they bring across is the same messaging.
So much of what you have just said is what I am hearing from the new program.
Yep.
Alumni who in our hearts have, this is my favorite song. This is what we did. And remember when this happened on stage.
Right.
And for me, when we did service was a high school, a prison, a mental hospital, which don't exist.
Right.
Like they did back in the 70s. Assemblies, a nursing home.
Right.
It was bringing song, a message through song to those places.
Right.
It wasn't the same. And when Caleb traveled in 2013 and they spent a week in a place and they really did service. And I know that in this new program, that is going to be there. And interestingly, as I think about, future interviews here, some parent who traveled and up with people commented on Silvana's and said, Silvana is one of my daughter's best friends. They were in World Smart together. And exactly what you said. And I'm like, maybe there needs to be a conversation with 2 or 3 older alumni whose children traveled in World Smart, because anytime there's change, okay, I can say I like change all I want. I don't right. Like change. Do I always jump out and embrace it? However, I am excited that a new program is going to exist, that yes, there will be components of the old piece, that in anything that's brand new, you maybe have failures and you fail forward and you learn and then you adjust, right? And that's what World Smart, frankly, didn't have the time to do, right? They didn't have how can we adjust and maybe, like you said, or better prep. So I'm super excited about what's going to happen. And I think that it is going to be, first of all, 12 weeks. Kids can do 12 weeks, sometimes easier in the year. There's way more options than there was in 1976, when I traveled, for what they can do. And yet I think that many of us have no idea what you just described. And it's important that people understand that. And then you said you did Up with People Junior, and on the call the other day, do you know Patty Barrows Stafford? Because
of course, we were together. She was doing the site directing in Georgia.
Right. So she traveled with me, and that was like her question. Are we still going to do Up with People Junior? Because she's got 1 million grandkids. Patty, if you listen to this, you have more grandkids than all of us. And do they have a future place, in this program? And what would they be like? What would that be like for them? And I think it's important for those of you with youngers than me,
right,
to be like, yeah, this could still be the same experience, for them that it was for me. So.
And linking the two that I think is cool, if that music piece, here's the beauty, right? If Up with People Junior still feeds the legacy of the music, right? Because kids love that and they jump in. That was the beauty, right? And then you've got parents of these young kids who are up there conveying a message in a way that is well beyond their years, right? They can learn a song and share a message in a really powerful way through music. So the junior program could still be embedded. Now you've got students who have this legacy piece, and then they say, hey, now when I'm older, I want to go on the Voices program.
Right.
And I've already got this historical legacy piece of, I know, like, here's my purpose and what brings me to why I'm doing it. And I think that has to be a huge piece of where Voices is going. Like the legacy piece, understand who's come before you and now say, let's take it to the future. The key thing, again, that I think all alumni need to understand, the competition that Up With People has with whatever they are putting out now is so different than
Right.
the 90s, right? The international education market, the travel market, just the education market in general. Like students are going and doing these things with organizations independently on their own. They're creating their own experiences because there's endless opportunities. Now, COVID had us all press pause on what those were, but there's even more, and folks are itching even more to get out there.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
I think the key is, how does this compete? And it has to, right? It has to stand up with a choice for students that they're going to say, I'm going to take this because it's going to catapult me to whatever I want to do next.
Right.
And I think that's going to be important in the model, and also in supporting it, saying, let's build a financially stable model that can sustain not 2 years or 5 years, but that can really grow with the possibility that it can be around for our kids and our grandkids and who else is next. I mean, let's face it, our alumni population is shrinking because we've had these chunks and gaps that we need to build it for the next generation. And it looks different.
And the reunions will start taking a little bit different form, because instead of 500 alumni that traveled in a year, there's 80.
Correct.
And then the next 80, or the World Smart group, didn't do a show. So how do we take all of it and mix it together and keep the two organizations linked, understanding the base components and things like that. So, all right. So I want to go back to you. Did you go to Colorado for work and then not wind up marrying and staying in Colorado, Danielle, or?
Yes, that's exactly what happened. So I had finished my master's degree at Suffolk University in Boston. And I said, well, I'm going to apply for jobs here, but I've always had a love for Colorado. And I didn't really get to experience beyond Up With People, right? I was so busy and in that world that I thought, I'm going to look at opportunities there as well. And I actually came out and worked for Johnson & Wales University as the director of the Community Leadership Institute, and working with service learning programs and teaching courses there. Unfortunately, the college has closed this campus now, but that was 21 years ago. So, but it was a great experience. And then, I've been in Colorado ever since. It's the longest.
What do you do now for work? What do you, I see whiteboards behind you.
Yes, well, I'm in transition actually right now. So I have done a whole variety of things, but my work is in learning and development and working with organizations, trying to make them better. My current role, I've been doing proposal writing and award writing for an organization. So lots of different things. But I also am looking at sort of what the next chapter will hold. So who knows?
Nice. Well, I told, I'm getting to the age where I could or should retire if I had money. And
isn't that the way?
Yeah. But I said when I moderated this thing the other day that in another life, I always wanted to be a talk show host. So doing this is my self-talk show.
Yes.
Kind of thing. So some of the questions that Sheila Detloff and Mona, who helped me kind of just say, yeah, let's go do this. She said, you need to have a speed round and ask people like, where was their favorite place to go? So where did you love traveling, Danielle? And or where haven't you been that you'd like to go back to?
Yes. So, well, Mexico holds a special place in my heart because of our tour. In fact, my cast has tagged on 4 extra days to our reunion on the front end, that we are flying into Phoenix and driving down to Mexico for 4 days together, so that we can sort of have some of that nostalgia of what we had. So that will always have a special place in my heart. But I was also a flight attendant for 5 years in my career, in between some of these other adventures. And one of my favorite other places in the world that I didn't go Up With People is New Zealand. I have such a love for the culture and the country, and just everything about how they function and operate. It's a place I would relocate to if it were easier.
A
So
little
my
closer, baby. Yeah.
Yeah, and a place I haven't been that has been on the list, I really, really would like to go more down to Central America. So like Honduras, Guatemala, some of those places. Again, I think culturally, maybe it's from my time in Mexico, speaking a little bit of Spanish, but really love a lot of the heartfelt of what those cultures have to offer. So I would like to
Interesting.
explore some of that.
Interesting. That's very cool. I booked professional speakers before I did real estate. And one of the speakers I booked, he was from South Africa, but he and his wife now live in the Dominican Republic. And
Mhm.
they have, and I watch how they live. And I watch, and he's a sailor. So then he'll, get on his boat and go,
Yes.
whatever. But there's a piece of me that says, man, what a life. And they're like,
Yeah.
come, come, come. And I'm just like, okay, I have to make this happen. I have to go there. Cause if you're like me, I love going where I know some people who know the culture locally, right? Because
Yes.
you just always learn more. That's the whole host, experience that we have had. All right. What about food? What food did you eat that you had never eaten before that you either really, really love, or is there something that you ate once that you will never eat again?
Well, I will say I just love food. I mean, I grew up pretty spoiled in a family that my dad worked with catering for hotels. So I got to try a lot
Oh,
of great things as a kid. Lobster is my all-time favorite thing to eat. If I had to eat only one thing for the rest of my life, it would be Maine lobster
that's awesome.
every day. There is nothing that I wouldn't try. I would say for me, I'm adventurous that way.
So
But
you would do like the crispy bugs and
I
things
would
that,
eat crispy bugs. Yep. Even like, and I've tried things like tripe and, all of
yeah,
that. Um, a lot of them I don't say like, oh, I want to have that again.
right.
But I feel like you don't know until you try, right? Might be the most amazing thing. And I'm about experiences, right? You
Yeah.
only live once, it's adventure. And what a cool way to get to learn or experience something about the places that you go. So I traveled in Kenya
Ah,
when I was a flight attendant. I took a month and actually backpacked through Kenya and got to travel around on my own. And my big thing was like, probably not smart at the time. I'm amazed I didn't actually get any stomach issues from it all. But I would stop at like the roadside, whatever they were doing,
and
because I was
just
like,
get
I want like what's local. I don't want to go to the fancy tourist place. Like
right.
I want to experience what's here. That's what I loved most about even traveling with Up with People, was having a home cooked meal in somebody's family,
Yeah.
uh, and getting to try that. So I'm pretty adventurous with food.
We um we were in Mexico City for 6 weeks and performed at the Arena Mexico. And at that time there were all sorts of the pop-up places outside on the street. We
Yeah.
were all being told to watch the water, but like nobody was talking about the food. So
Right.
and our host, I stayed with someone, it started my love of French. I stayed with someone from Brussels in Mexico City for 6 weeks, and we would always have a soup. And we'd be trying to figure out what vegetable was in the soup, right? So you'd have a
Yes.
green soup. And so she would start taking French words and putting an O or an A on the end to figure out, is it the same
Right.
word in Spanish? And what are
Right.
we eating tonight? And
Right.
stuff like that. There's an alumni that is one of the, I think he's a line host. I forget what his job is. Do you know Grant on Gretchen Axton? Do you know?
Yes.
Yeah. So I always told Grant, I would, if I was like on Naked and Afraid, I'd probably die the first day. Like I just don't think I'd be doing. In fact, that there's a clear reason I haven't auditioned, to go and
Yes.
be on that show. But in 2015, there was about 90 alumni that got together in Sweden for Midsummer. That some of the 84, Karin Nyqvist and some of them hosted. And I am Swedish at a good chunk, and our family grew up, and the men were always eating the herring and the fish, and I never did.
Yes.
And I remember I was like, and my cousins live there too, and I was like, okay, I've got to try herring, and I ate like 3 helpings of it in different
Yep.
sauces. I thought, I am 60 years old, and this isn't so bad.
Yeah. Well, it's all about preparation, right? If someone knows how to prepare it, and it
Yeah,
can be anything, can be a delicacy. I mean, if it's prepared properly, food is fun.
yeah, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So, do you have any? How old are your kids? You have 2 girls, is that
I
right?
have 2 girls and a boy. So
2 girls and a boy.
they
How old?
are 10, 12, and 14. The boy
10,
is
12, and 14. So just prime for that Up With People Junior moving up kind of thing.
Exactly.
If you were going to talk to people locally, and I hope you do, about and are learning about the new Voices by Up With People, what might you share with that 15 or 16-year-old, up to 25-year-old, that would inspire them to consider this as an option for the future?
I think the biggest thing is this: at that age, none of us know what we want to do or who we want to be. And I think one of the best ways, and this is probably why I traveled too, back in the day. I think if you can take an opportunity that exposes you to new ideas, new ways of thinking, and people who are different from you, it is the best way to figure out who you want to be. So in that space of like, hey, get an exposure to this, and what a cool opportunity in a relatively short window of time that you're going to have exposure to all these kind of things that in your day-to-day backyard, in your community, you aren't going to connect with. And what the beauty of it is it opens the door to possibility. And so you say, hey, I don't know. You don't have to know at 15,
right.
At 16, you don't have to know. But if you can create and start the conversation about possibilities, then it opens the door. Like, the sky is truly the limit for these young kids, right? What's possible and what they are capable of. And it's just having those conversations. And the other piece I would tell them is, ask lots of questions, right? So in this process, be inquisitive and ask questions. And it's okay to be a little bit selfish about it, to say, ask those questions because you're trying to figure it out. Like, who do you want to be when you grow up? What adventure do you want to have in your life? And not just the adventure of the Voices program or World Smart or Up With People, but like, what do you want to experience? And being able to go into a program like Voices, or the previous programs, it offers so many different things, and you get to kind of customize what that experience looks like for you. What do you want?
And don't you think what I don't know if it's Joharian window or whatever, is that you don't know what you don't know. Right. So if a girl from a town of 500 people settled by 9 German siblings,
right,
excuse me, only knew that.
Right.
So this opens you up to, you're like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing or a possibility. And I think that about jobs nowadays, like with
yes,
as people are choosing, or they tell me what they're studying in school, I'm like, holy moly, I didn't even know that was a thing. Right. So,
and really it's about people, right? Anything that you're going to do. We like to say we're so tech savvy and we're moving into this tech world, but at the end of the day, the relationships and the people are what going to create your experience. Like you said, going somewhere where you already know somebody. Yes, it's great to go and travel on your own and experience things individually, but usually what sparks that is a connection or a person or a reason, a value that you have because of someone that has impacted your life.
I agree. Well, thank you so much for taking time this morning. I will make this live probably in I try to do a couple a month. And one of them just went live. One with Silvana just went live like a week ago. And I look forward to seeing you again, being reminded when we met,
yes,
how we met. And I do hope that I'm going to help with reunions. So I hope I get to at least say hello.
Absolutely.
And give you
I will look for you there this summer after I'm spending 4 glorious days in Mexico.
Yay! That'll be so fun. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.